Today we're looking at freedom through prayer. And this sounds a little bit like a 4th of July talk, but it's more about practice of prayer from a unique unity perspective. And I'm not sure that it's, we could even say that, it's one that I have adopted a long time ago and understand well the principles involved. And so the type of prayer that I grew up learning was a beseeching type of prayer, where you send out your message and you hope that God hears and answers. And the type of prayer we'll talk about today, and I'm really just reminding you of something you've already heard here and going over again, but it's such an important and useful idea, a useful principle that you really can't go over it enough. We just need to keep reminding ourselves of how to do it, because it's so easy to fall back on the old thinking God is the old man up in the sky with all the answers, and we utter our prayers hoping that we are in good standing and find favor with God, and God finds it within his heart to respond in a positive way. But there are other approaches to prayer that I think are a lot more powerful and meaningful. And there's nothing wrong with keeping an orthodox view of God, even as an old man in the sky. I would say that if you still hold that and it works for you, if you feel find comfort in that, as a little girl said that she needed a God with skin on, and it's there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it helps you make a shift from the apparent problem to the solution. Open yourself to the solution. I know when people sin in the past, and I think now probably too, when you send a prayer to Silent Unity, you call there or you write to them for prayer, there's probably some old-fashioned thought around doing that. Like, if I give my prayer to the experts, they'll get it to headquarters and an answer will come forth. It's sort of the same thing of thinking of God in sort of an anthropomorphic way, a human kind of way, that we're turning our request over to somebody. The real power, I think, in doing that is in letting go. It's the same principle that I've talked about, or somebody I learned a long time ago. A friend of mine gave a talk called The Lord's Sugar Bowl. And you write out your concern and you put it in a sugar bowl or any kind of container. And the idea there is you're letting it go. Every time you think of the problem again, you say, I've turned that over. I've let it go. So what we're doing is we're getting out of the way, and we're allowing forces that are already here to work in a harmonious way. When you're praying for something and you're clinging to it, you got your fingernails dug into the answer, to the hoped for answer, and you're struggling with a particular outcome. It totally destroys your creativity. It just takes it away. It doesn't destroy it permanently, but it's a distraction. And it's so easy to do that, to get into that kind of thing. And even when we're thinking of prayer as an attitude, as that our mindset has a lot to do with outcomes, we can go through all kinds of things where, why did I bring this on? What was it that I needed? What is it that I need to change in myself? And we start looking at ourselves and maybe introduce a whole level of self-help and self-fixing, that needs to occur before we get our answer. So this idea of, putting your request into a container and holding the idea that I have released that. And every time I begin to think about it, and that could be 5 minutes later, I remind myself I've let that go. And I am trusting that a greater outcome is coming. And I think this makes sense the saying of Jesus makes sense when we consider it in this vein. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. And what does he mean by this? I think he could mean many things, but what I think it means to me, what I think he means, is he's speaking of our attitude toward God, our attitude toward whatever it is we've asked for in prayer. So you've got a problem, you're praying about it, and you feel good about it. You're saying yes to a certain answer. But then 5 minutes later, something comes up and you start saying no to it, or maybe it's not going to work out. And you start giving energy to that in a negative way. And he's saying, be definitive here. Either you trust God or you don't. Either you trust this process or you don't. You're either saying yes to it or you're saying no to it. And that makes perfect sense to me. If I wanted to borrow a shovel from you, you were my neighbor, and I wanted to borrow your shovel, you'd say, well, maybe, or I'll have to think about it, or you wouldn't give me a yes or no, and so my problem wouldn't be resolved, and you'd just kind of leave me hanging. So it's an indecisive state of mind, and I think it was James that talked about this, that when the mind is mixed, when it's like a rudderless ship, it just blows about. And so he's saying here, be definitive, be decisive. When you ask for something in prayer and you say, I believe that I have received it, and then a few minutes later you don't believe that you've received it, you can see how the thing works. It's we're going back and forth, we're oscillating. So I think this makes perfect sense when we are looking at prayer in this way. When we think of prayer, this makes perfect sense. We say no to our doubts and yes to the truth we affirm is unfolding. Let's say you have a healing need, and instead of saying, God, please heal me, you would say the infinite life of God is present and active in every atom and cell of my being. And you just hold this kind of thought, that this is working through you. If you have a need for guidance, you would say, I am immersed in the intelligence of God, the fullness of God. I know what to do and I do it. And you say that even when you don't know what to do and you don't do it. Because what that does, it opens the door of your mind to the possibility of that answer unfolding. And when you reach a resolution like this, even though the external is not resolved, you reach a resolution in yourself, the peace that you lose by worrying about it, you gain back, you find your center again. And you may have to do this continually to bring yourself back, to stop robbing yourself, to stop being robbed of the peace of mind that you want. That's really what the true barometer is what is happening presently in your mind. How do you know when a prayer is answered? You know a prayer is answered by how you feel. When you reach a state of absolute peace, you have your answer. Is it the answer you want? Maybe not. But if you reach a state of peace, it won't matter what the answer is. And that's what's important. It's like we say this or something better. Because the thing that we want, maybe it is a barrier. Maybe it would get in our way in a way that we don't understand, a way that we can't see. We apply all of our intelligence, all the information we have in our heads, we apply it to the problem. We say, this is what we need. This is what I need. This is what the answer needs to look like. But have you ever done that, and the answer that you got didn't look like that, and it was actually better than what you were hoping for? That does happen, and it's very difficult when it does happen. It's like you can be very disappointed. I told you that when I first applied for the ministry, I was rejected. I told all of my friends, that I'm going to be a minister. They could care less, of course, because they couldn't figure out why I would want to do that. But I cared, and I totally understood what it meant. And it was a new day for me, a new beginning. And I remember getting this letter in the mail that says, "You're not in. We have not accepted you." And they gave me 3 reasons why. So it was devastating. But what happened ultimately was a minister friend offered to help me fulfill those 3 requirements. One was I had no money. That was kind of important, to go to school. I didn't have a clue as to how I was going to pay my tuition. He said he'd pay it. The church would pay it. They said I had no experience in a church, which was absolutely true. I had experience in a Baptist church, but not in a unity church. He said, "Would you like to be my associate?" And the third thing was, "You don't seem to understand the unity principles, so we'd like you to brush up on those." Well, as the associate minister, the senior minister, Dr. George Hilbert, gave me all the rope I needed to hang myself in classes and Sunday talks and he gave me an experience I could never get in seminary. So did something better work out, from what I was hoping in the beginning? I did not know how we would get through the whole school thing, because we had nothing at the time. We had two little babies in Pampers. Well, Pampers were the Sunday dress. That was a luxury to have Pampers. So, but we had that was a perfect case, and many things like that have happened throughout my life where I thought, this is what I wanted, I didn't get it, it was devastating. And I just, you just feel like, I don't even care, it doesn't matter, nothing matters. It just takes you down so many notches that you don't feel like pursuing it. But it was the very Sunday after that letter that everything changed. And it was that's not uncommon. We put all the facts that we have in our heads on the table, and we arrange them all around, and we say, here's what has to happen, because here are my resources. And again, because we had no funds, I didn't know how we would get through school. I just thought if we started taking each step, we'd make it. Well, it worked out where the steps were not all that hard to take once the thing unfolded. So this or something better has meant a lot to me, through my years saying this when I'm praying for something. And I do find myself clinging, to certain outcomes. But it is stressful. You lose your peace of mind when you do that, because you think, well, what if it doesn't work out? And in the early case, it was like, if it doesn't work out, I'm going to be something less. I've got a lot of explaining to do. That's what I saw myself doing, and I won't be doing that. So I feel like I'm something less than I hope to be. And that's pretty hard to walk with. To show up and look at people in the eye and think, I've got to continue my life with you. I don't want to. I want to go on somewhere else. And it's not with you, it's with this situation. In that particular time, I was working with my father had a building business, and I was working as a carpenter. Jesus did that too, so I don't feel too bad. But to me it was demeaning. I didn't want to do that. And so I had to look at that situation and say, I'm stuck with this. I don't want to do this anymore. My answer was a lot better. And my answer came, but in a way that was better than I thought. So I really, to me that was a profound experience. I never would have guessed that would have happened, never, in a million years. So I didn't have that information I could put on the table and arrange all around to figure out how to put it in the right place. And that's kind of the cool thing. We're dealing with infinite intelligence. So you could have a situation today and you look at all your resources, you don't have the resources to fix it, to meet it. Somebody in China could be thinking of something at this moment that would answer your prayer in some way. We're dealing with omnipotence, omniscience, all law, all intelligence, with no boundaries. It's not just what's in my head, that's what's important. So when we talk about faith, we're talking about entering a new dimension, a new way of thinking. That everything that I need is here, not necessarily physically here, but in potential it is here, it is now manifesting in some way. But I need to take my mind probably off of the way I'm expecting it to work out. There's nothing wrong with doing that, with holding that and seeing a line that you're moving in. See the greatest possibilities or the most probable possibilities unfolding, I guess. But to always hold that with the thought that this or something better. So it's very easy to hold something like this and think, I've got to do this. It's got to manifest this way. And I can go through this whole thing of saying no to that, no to anything that counters that, and yes to everything that supports it. But can I step up a little bit higher and say no to any fear that if this doesn't work out, I'll be something less? It's a matter of moving beyond just our normal human thought. But it's not supernatural. It's supernatural in the sense that it is super or above the normal operation of our thinking. Supernatural is not supernatural as we think of it. It's supernormal. It's a dimension within our own consciousness that is there, but we just don't always use it. We're not always aware because we're so focused on how it must all unfold. So it's easy to let the mind run wild in times of uncertainty. This can drain us of our creative energy. Have you ever experienced that? Has your mind ever run wild? Mine did once. 10 minutes ago. That's our knee-jerk reaction. And it's just so easy to let that happen. It can drain us of our creative energy. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed how when your mind is running wild, you can't really feel peace? You can't really feel the creative imagination? Have you ever, if you've ever done any kind of an art project and you're preoccupied with something, it's very hard to get into it. If you are free at that moment, you can be creative. You can let your creative juices flow. You get new ideas, new thoughts. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter, you could be painting, you could be writing music, you could be doing a garden, decorating your house, anything. When you step off the normal reactive type of thinking that we get so involved in, your creativity comes in ways that it's always been there. But what it is, basically, you're using the function, we're using the function of our imagination. You can only use it one way at a time. Just think of it that way. Like I've said, the telescope, it's either pointing to the ground or it's pointing to the stars. When it's pointing to the ground, it's not too exciting, not too impressive. But when we point it to the stars, it is. It's the same instrument. It's like we don't have to ask God, give me a better imagination. I've heard people say that. I have no imagination whatsoever. I'm not creative. It takes creativity to say that. You've got to be creative to define yourself the most creative being on this planet, a human being, and say, I have no creativity. I'm not creative. You're creating an image of yourself as a non-creative being. You're using the very faculty. You're pointing the telescope to the ground and saying there are no stars. Where I live, there are just no stars. I wish there were. But I've got my telescope pointed to the ground, and I don't know what to do about that. I'm not like that person over there that has so much more than I do, and they talk about stars all the time. In my world, there's no stars. There's just grass and gravel and bugs. So you work real hard to be like that person over there, instead of realizing that you've got this wonderful faculty called imagination that's just pointed in the wrong direction. You don't need any more imagination. We all have all we need. Okay. We treat prayer as a twofold process. Denial, which is release. And I've said this many times, don't think of denial as, say your life is a mess and you're saying it's all beautiful. I have no problem. That's a denial we're not talking about here. We're talking about release of an emotional level and mental level. In other words, if you're worried right now, denial would be release that worry, release that emotional energy, and allow something greater, allow faith to replace it. It's not imagining or pretending something's not there. If you walking through the desert and you fall in a hole, one form of denial is to say, what hole? There's no hole. This is just the way it is. And I'm okay with this. Well, you're not okay with it. You're in a hole and you want to get out. So denial, it would, in this case, would be you're looking around and saying there's no way out of this hole. No. Release that. Let that go. There is a way out, and I know what it is. Even though you don't, you're opening your mind to that possibility. And you begin to put your creative energy into that instead of either pretending like there's no problem or there's nothing you can do about it. So denial in the prayerful sense is a release, and affirmation is a statement of what is true from the highest level. So whatever your situation is, if you are bound by something right now, you are in a situation you don't want and don't like, and you say, I'm bound by this. Start with this idea that my soul is free. I'm in this body. The body may be confronted with this problem. But as a spiritual being, I am absolutely free. And that's true. It doesn't matter where you are body-wise, your soul is always free. And we have so associated with the body that we can't grasp this real quick. So we affirm it. We say it's true. This is true. I am free right now. And as James Dillard Freeman would say, we don't affirm something to make it true. We affirm it because it is true. We release the negative energy that we put around it, and we affirm what is true at the highest level. And we can put this in words, which is advisable, is good, or we can just use it in terms of our thought. Every time a negative something comes up within us, we say, no, I let this go. I'm not going to go down that road. I know what that's like. You know what it is to worry. You know what that feels like. You know how devastating that is to your peace of mind. We all know that. So what if we were worried sick about something and we said to ourselves, I've done this many times and I can choose to keep doing it now. I've said before that we only worry about the things we can do nothing about. If you meditate on that, you'll see the wisdom of it. If you could do something about it, you wouldn't worry. So how foolish is it to worry about something you can do nothing about? Where is your energy going when you're doing that? So we let that go. You don't have to have the answer to let something go. You don't have to have the answer to let something go. That is what we think for the most part. I have to have the answer before I can have peace. If you don't have the answer, you're sitting there worried sick about something. Where is the peace of the universe? Is that like, are you in a void where there's no peace, where some facet of God is absent? So omnipotence, omnipresence doesn't work in your life? You're the person with the telescope pointed to the ground saying, there are no stars in my life? You can do that. I've done it. You've done it. But we know it doesn't work. We only worry about the things we can do nothing about. So we say, okay, I've done that and I know where that goes. It goes no place. And so I let go. I start letting go of that negative energy that I've been putting in this thing. And I affirm what is true from the highest level. I am free now. I am whole now. I am being guided by infinite wisdom, infinite intelligence. Love is dissolving everything that is not for my highest good and is drawing to me that which is. Right now. That's true. That's truth, and that's what I affirm. I don't affirm based on what I'm seeing. I affirm based on what I know at the deeper level. That's what's important about this spiritual stuff. You can't read enough books to make that change in your own consciousness. You've got to decide to do it. And when's the best time to decide? Current problem, current thing. Your life right now, because where else can you be? This is it. The quality of your life is being determined by how you think at this moment, what you're doing with your emotions, where your telescope is pointed right now. Very important thing to grasp. But, and I'll add the but because we always have to do that, it's not easy. This is the funny thing. It is much easier to do what I'm talking about than to not do it. Because you will beat yourself up to no end by going down the path of capitulating to the appearance of something and just letting yourself run wild. You will suffer. It's very difficult. It's easy though. The wide and narrow gate, most people enter by the wide gate of worry and fear and all of that because it's easy. It's the easiest. It's the knee-jerk reaction. We've all been trained to do it in many ways. Denial is release all negative energy, emotion, and internal chatter that negates your desire. You ever heard that internal chatter? Sometimes I wish I could record it just to show myself how ridiculous it is. Your internal chatter can go, it travels at light speed. It can make several revolutions around the universe in just a matter of seconds about all the things that can go wrong and all the reasons that you can't have or be what you want to be. It's a pretty interesting thing. I think it was Don Juan, Carlos Castaneda's, talked about internal dialogue and just keeping an eye on all of that. So a denial, an example of this is, I now release all fear, all doubt, all feeling of uncertainty concerning this situation. Think about something in your life right now that you're going through. Let's say this together. Together? I now release all fear, all doubt, all feeling of uncertainty concerning this situation. Okay, these are words. But let yourself experience these words. And as I said, you'll know your prayer's answered. You'll know you've released it by the peace that you feel. That's how you gauge it. It's by actual experience. So that's denial. It's a releasing. Affirmation is the wisdom of God. This is a statement. The wisdom of God is now revealing the right steps to take. Love dissolves that which is not for my highest good and attracts that which is. Okay, think of your situation, and let's just know this truth for that situation. Let's say this together. The wisdom of God is now revealing the right steps to take. Love dissolves that which is not for my highest good and attracts that which is. And when you say something like this, you get the feeling that that's actually happening. Just imagine how you'd feel if that's happening right now. As you go through your day, make a habit of saying yes to your prayer, that is your desire, the desire for your prayer, this or something better. Say yes to that. And no to any emotion or appearance that contradicts it. Keep your energy directed to trust in God, that the best and highest is now working through you and through all concerned. I think this is the last paragraph on your bulletin back, so take that home if you need to have it and remember it. But that's what we want to do. It's a change of mind, change of present mind action, which is going on at this very moment. All right? Thank you for coming out, and we will see you again.
You've been watching a talk presented at the Unity Church of Grand Junction by Reverend Doug Wator. We would like to thank everyone who joined us here today in beautiful Grand Junction, Colorado, as well as those of you who are joining us online. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Also, please feel free to share this video with anyone you think might be interested or benefit from this message. If this video brought value to your life, please consider making a donation by clicking the link below to our PayPal donation account. Thanks again so much for watching.